Hello fellow YouTubers, I'm Cassandra Joy and welcome to my channel. This video is a little bit different than my normal content, but it's something that's been on my heart and in my mind for the past 3 days straight, and I just knew it was something that I was being called to talk about. Now this is a very controversial conversation, and if you've hung out on my channel for any length of time, you know that shoving my opinion down someone else's throat is not my way. I am very gentle with my opinions, and I'm the kind of person that can agree to disagree at the end of the day, but I think we're all grown up enough to have a very civil and understanding and open conversation about things that we might not all agree on. So that's the vibe of today's video. The topic of today's video is why I'm pro-life and why, even if I wasn't a Christian, I would still be pro-life. So before getting into what my opinion is exactly and why I believe it, I'm gonna tell you a story. You know me, I'm all about telling a story. There's drama, there's life or death scenarios, and there's miracles. It's the perfect concoction for a great story, and bonus points, it's true. Once upon a time, there was a little baby born 2.5 months early. Me. My parents were about to move to Alabama. My dad was in the military and he was being transferred, and so they had moved all of their things to the new place, but they wanted to stay overnight at my grandparents' house for one last goodbye. They had nothing to move but themselves. Everything else was in Alabama, and that night my mom's water broke 2.5 months early. My parents, my grandparents all rushed to the hospital. I was born very quickly, and I was born silently. My mom distinctly remembers that I didn't cry. They whisked me away so quickly that it was a full 10-15 minutes before she was even told what gender I was. The reason they whisked me away so quickly was because my lungs were underdeveloped, I was jaundiced, and I had a really rare blood condition. So in simple terms that don't contain any medical jargon, my mom's blood and my dad's blood combined did not mix well. It's a very rare thing to happen, so that meant I had to have my blood completely replaced. Twice. Now here's where the God winks come in and the miracles start happening. So the doctor that was assigned to me had only just been transferred to that hospital a week or two before, and when I came along, he knew immediately that I needed to have my blood replaced. The nurse there told him, "We don't do that here," and he said, "We do now." If it hadn't been for that doctor who insisted that I had my blood replaced, the battling blood inside me would have killed me. And if I hadn't been born 2.5 months early exactly, any earlier, my lungs wouldn't have been developed enough for me to survive. Any later, and the blood condition would have killed me. I was born at the exact perfect time, in the exact perfect location, with the exact perfect doctor that I needed to help me live. I stayed in the hospital until my due date. It was a very long process. I can't even imagine how that would feel to be first-time parents and have all of this to deal with. It's not what you imagine when you decide to have a baby. But my parents stayed by my side throughout the whole ordeal. They stayed somewhere called the Ronald McDonald House. It allowed my parents to stay close to me throughout everything going on. And one of the nurses actually told my parents, "You know, we have other children here who are struggling, but your daughter's doing better because you're here." It actually makes a big difference when the baby can hear the parents' voices. And another thing I forgot to mention, my parents couldn't hold me for a really long time because it burnt too many calories and they didn't want me losing any weight because I was born a little over 3 pounds. I was so tiny I could fit in my dad's hand. The story obviously has a happy ending. I'm alive and well and have nothing but gratitude to thank for the military staff and the hospitals that helped me. This story is the main reason I'm pro-life. Because while doctors were scurrying around desperately trying to save my life, somewhere else doctors were scurrying around desperate to end the life of a baby of the same gestational period as me. So here's where the uncomfortable things start. If that baby, somewhere else, having their life ended, was just a clump of cells, why then was I not considered a clump of cells? Same gestational period, probably the same weight, same size, both babies. The only difference is that one was wanted and one wasn't. Because it's easier to distance emotionally from something if you use words that are clinical, like abort or terminate or fetus or clump of cells. Makes it feel a lot more medical and a lot less wrong. And I know a lot of people will instantly jump to the worst case scenario of why someone would choose to do that to the child they're carrying. All of the different horrible circumstances that can result in a baby. Women's rights all the way. My body, my choice. Okay, well let me ask you a question. I've got a piece of cookie dough here. It's edible, has a lot of cool ingredients, but I added an extra ingredient. Do you want to eat it? Oh, you want to know what the added ingredient is? Sure. It's dog poop. Oh, you don't want the cookie dough anymore? Why? The rest of it's good. It's just that one part that's not good. No? Okay. Well, honestly, I don't blame you. I wouldn't eat it either. That's the way to look at women's rights. You can package it to look like a really yummy piece of cookie dough, but then there's murdering unborn babies involved. You can't just support part of women's rights. You're supporting everything. Maybe you're the kind of person that's like, well, I agree with women's rights, but, you know, I'm still sort of iffy on the abortion part. But the rest of it's good. If you wouldn't eat a piece of cookie dough with dog poop in it, you don't really support the whole thing, do you? You can't really support the whole cookie dough if you don't agree with all the parts of it. And maybe there are some of you who do agree that abortion is an okay thing to do. But I also think that a lot of people aren't educated on what actually takes place. Again, all of those clinical words that are used make it seem a lot more distant and a lot more humane than it actually is. Did you know that a lot of times the babies will be dismembered, have their limbs torn apart in the womb before being extracted completely and left to just bleed and die? Did you know that their brains are often pierced at the back of the skull and their brains are sucked out with a vacuum? Did you know that saline abortions involve injecting saline, basically the equivalent of drowning in salt water? Those are just a few of the methods that are used to end a baby's life. But abortion doctors don't talk about that. And they don't let you see the ultrasound when you go in because they don't want you to feel any kind of remorse or guilt or connectivity to the thing inside you. But I think the big question that people and ah over is, when does it stop being a clump of cells and start being a life? A lot of people believe in the heartbeat bill, where, okay, if it has a heartbeat, it's alive. Some people believe that, well, if it's still in the womb, it's not technically alive, so it can be right up to 9 months. There's also something called partial birth, where you only birth the baby up to its neck. And because it's not all the way out, it's not all the way alive. I can tell you, being on the other side of being born at an abortable stage of gestation, that if I had been born to parents who didn't want me, and if I had been given a choice whether or not to stay alive or to be aborted, I would have chosen life. I fought in that hospital to stay alive at 2.5 months early. I can't imagine other babies are doing any less. My life had value then, just as much as it has value now. And I've been through a lot of tough things in life, a lot of things that people would have said, well, life's not really worth living, you're going through all those bad things. Maybe by aborting you early, I've saved you from all of those things. Well, I can tell you right here, right now, after going through all of those horrible things, I'd still choose life. I'd still choose to live. I clearly wanted to live. Every day I fought to stay alive in the hospital. Basically, it comes back to the cookie dough. You can't have it both ways. You can't love the cookie dough and choose not to eat it because of an ingredient you find disagreeable. One baby aborted at 2.5 months early can't just be a lump of cells if a baby born at 2.5 months early isn't considered a lump of cells. Does that make sense? The double standard is what makes the entire belief of ending a baby's life fall apart. You know, we go up in arms in the defense of children who have been kidnapped or assaulted by grown-ups. That angers us. That lights a fire in us that makes us want to fight in defense of that child. Why is it different in the womb? And now they're trying to pass a law that says a woman can give birth to their baby, set the baby aside, crying and helpless on the table, and have a full-on discussion about whether or not they want to have the baby live or not. It's already been born. Is that still a clump of cells? And if this topic gives you an icky, slimy, uncomfortable feeling, maybe you should reevaluate what you're supporting. Because if you really supported it and if you really thought it was right, it wouldn't give you that uncomfortable feeling. I'm not here to judge or be angry at anyone. I'm not going to yell at you if you believe something different than me. All I can do is tell you my story and where I stand. I know I would have chosen life at any stage of gestation. If I had been asked and if I had had a voice, I would have chosen life. The argument on women's rights. Women should have rights. I believe that women should have rights. Does that not extend to the women in the womb? How many women get murdered and killed every day at abortion clinics? If you support women's rights, you can't just support part of it. You've got to support all of it. Women deserve rights in adulthood, and women deserve rights in the womb. I was born at an abortable gestation. But if I had had a voice and if somebody had asked, I would have chosen life. You can probably tell that I'm really emotional about this, because anytime I hear a story about a baby whose life was ended early, all I can picture is me. All I can picture are my little baby pictures of when I was in the hospital. My life had value then, and my life has value now. Every life has value. We are called to defend the defenseless. We are called to help the helpless. We're called to give a voice to the voiceless. That should also extend to unborn babies. I know that this is a very controversial topic. I know that a lot of people will feel very uncomfortable and have that uncomfortable, wormy feeling. It's hard to face an opinion that you don't agree with, no matter what it is. That's why even in real life, I never approach an argument through a raised voice or an accusatory pointed finger. That doesn't help anyone. I heard a quote once and I've never forgotten it. If you're in an argument and you raise your voice, start yelling, you've already lost the argument. So I always keep that in mind when I discuss things that are a little bit yucky. You know, I have people in my life who fully believe that abortion is okay, that child murder isn't child murder, that the my body, my choice overrides anything else. Technically, the baby isn't the woman's body. The baby has its own unique set of DNA. It's its own unique being. Just happens to be connected with an umbilical cord. This is the hardest video I've ever had to film. I didn't want to film it in equal measure to wanting to film it. It's an uncomfortable topic, and I like to keep my content light and a kind of escape from the heavy things. This is the one heavy thing I can't not talk about because of my story. But I won't be scared to talk about it just because I might lose some followers. You know, every unfollow hurts because I'm small, but if I can reach one person with this story, if I can save one little Cassie in the world, then it's worth it. But I feel like I was given my story for a reason, and maybe this is it. Whatever happens after I upload this is up to God. I have no control over where this video goes or who it reaches, but I hope it was of some benefit to you. Whether it changed your mind on opinions you've believed for a long time, or even if it just made you look a little closely at the ingredients of what you believe. If I leave you with anything, I want to leave you with this. Don't just swallow what you're told. Research all the ingredients of what you say you believe. Don't just swallow it whole. If you're looking for more information on this kind of thing, I'll leave a link in the description box of a video I found really helpful. It was a non-judgmental view on abortion. This couple interviewed a lot of medical professionals who had performed abortions or had them, and they interviewed them on their experiences. And the interesting thing is that all of the medical professionals they interview regret having been a part of it. But at the time they didn't. At the time they believed fully that what they were doing was right. So to hear how their perspective changed and what caused their perspective to change is really intriguing. And it's all approached very gently. No one's yelling, no one's pointing a finger and accusing you of being a terrible person if this is something that you've chosen to do. It's just offering up information. And I think that's the best way to have a conversation that's hard to discuss, that's something that not everybody agrees with. My videos will return to their happy, positive content during the next upload day. This was just something tearing me up inside and I couldn't not talk about it. I hope all of you who have been here for a long time, know me personally or know me really well through the other videos that I make. I hope we can still have uplifting conversations despite maybe disagreeing on this. Thank you guys so much for watching. All I ask is that you keep the comment section polite. I know most of you are so wonderful and will do that anyway. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.